What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Cricket Classics. Now, despite the fact that sport is resuming slowly but surely, of course, the Premier League is back in action tonight. We are still facing and experiencing testing times all over the world, be it as a result of COVID, which has definitely impacted the entire world, be it as a result of some of the tension that we're experiencing right now at the India-China border, as well as some of the unrest and the protests and the violence that we're seeing in the United States. But the past can definitely be a place in which we can seek refuge, in which we can take solace. And that's exactly what we'll be doing in tonight's episode of Cricket Classics, in which we'll be going down memory lane and reminiscing about the final that took place between India and Pakistan in the inaugural edition of the ICC 2020 World Cup. And joining me for this very enthralling and captivating discussion is consulting chief editor here at One Play Sports, Ayaz Memon, presenter here at One Play Sports, Mandira Lalvani, as well as a cricket fanatic, Bharat Dhir, who's joining us all the way from the United States. Ayaz and Mandira, a very good evening to you. Bharat Dhir, a very good morning to you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Cheers with this glass of water, I guess.
Good to be here. Good to be back.
Brilliant. Ayaz, I'll kick things off with you. So, before we actually get into the thick of things and talk about the game that took place between India and Pakistan, let's just back up a bit. So before the start of the tournament, right, what were people saying about this format? Of course, T20 cricket at the international level was fairly nascent as a concept. Was this a Mickey Mouse tournament, before the start? That's what the perception of people was. What were you thinking before the tournament began?
Well, I was thinking precisely that because, I was in England for the India-England series before that, prior to that. And I remember that when India finished the tour, they won the Test series and lost the ODI series. Narrowly, I asked one of the players, are you going to South Africa and for this tournament, T20 tournament? And the first the reply I got was, who'll go for that Mickey Mouse cricket? So T20 cricket was nobody imagined that it would kind of become such a blockbuster subsequently. And if you look at what team India sent for that tournament, the inaugural tournament, the World Championship, there was no Tendulkar, there was no Dravid, there was no Lakshman, there was no Ganguly. None of these guys went, or the Indian board didn't think wanted to rest them after the England tour. And it was Mahendra Singh Dhoni's first assignment as captain. More than just that, India was the last team to agree to play that tournament. Because they were reluctant, and they said no. How BCCI can be at some times a little too officious. But finally they agreed, and the rest of the show is history.
Absolutely. Mandira, I'll come to you. I believe you were at the final, weren't you?
I was there. Yeah. I was very much there. In fact, I'd gone for the entire tournament. It was one of my first major assignments at ESPN. I just joined a few months prior to that, and I was told when I joined, "Ke tum jaoge September mein South Africa for the 2020 World Cup." And oh my God, it was such a fantastic experience. In fact, I remember we were there when the news came that Dravid has given up he's not going to play for the 2020 World Cup, and the captaincy will go to Dhoni for the 2020 World Cup. It was like, it caused such a stir at that point in time. Mm-hmm. We were, the way the team was divided, we were in different cities. So I was in Cape Town. And India was playing in Durban. Most of the India matches were in Durban, so that's where a lot of the halla gulla was. But Cape Town was relatively sedate, and I was very, very lucky because the Cape Town crew was sent back from Cape Town back to Singapore right just as soon as the Cape Town matches were finished. For some reason, with some stroke of luck, I had a ticket which went via Joburg, and I was flying SQ also. Like it was a fluke and just a stroke of really fabulous luck. And my boss at the time, Hugh Bevan, who's a very dear friend and now works with us, he told me that time, I said, yeah, I can go to Joburg. And he said, just have a blast. You don't have to work, just watch the match. It was surreal. I remember in that time, though, there was just passes were coming like whatever. I remember watching the match from the ICC president's box. And I remember drinking a lot of champagne that afternoon. And it was just the most magical day. And also, I remember, thanks to another friend from ESPN, Sunil Manoran, he had this idea where he'd taken a bat, like a full, not a mini bat, but a proper bat. And we got signatures of the India team and the Pakistan team on that. Both of us got that. So I still have that piece of memorabilia as well. So it was a very, very legendary and a very exciting day for me. Yeah.
You talked about drinking champagne on that day. Are we drinking champagne tonight as well as we're speaking right now? reminiscing about this classic contest that took place?
No, but when we start playing live cricket again, we will definitely drink champagne and toast to return of normalcy as we once knew it.
Brilliant. Bharat, coming to you now. Look, I think you were very young, right? When that game took place, you must have been 14.
I was just
14 or
about
15.
I was just about to get there. I'm glad Ayaz gave his take on it and Mandira was there. But मैं तो 15 साल का था. मैं तो खुश था. Cricket होगी. We'll see a different format because just a couple of months before that, India had not even qualified for the groups for the knockouts for the 2007 World Cup. Very disappointing. And I kind of felt like it was the seniors not playing T20 was kind of like a backlash from that because there was a lot of drama before the 07 World Cup, the one-day World Cup. Did we select the right squad? I know there was fallout between Ganguly and Kiran More. Ganguly was out of that squad. Dravid was captain. We took a lot of players that hadn't been playing before. Thappa was playing, Munaf Patel was playing. So the 07 inaugural T20 World Cup squad gave us like fresh talent. We were seeing Yusuf Pathan and Rohit Sharma for the first time, and no one knew what to make of the format. And Dhoni had gotten the captaincy, and everyone is excited that where is this going to be the new stage for Indian cricket? Are we going to transition from the seniors? And what's the new talent about? What's the new format about? So personally, as a young fan, I was super excited. I just wanted to see some cricket, and it turned out to be a blast.
Absolutely. Ayaz, walk us through the matches that India played leading up to the final. Of course, there was some classic contests. The one against Pakistan, in which we had that bowl out that took place. We played Australia in the semi-finals, I believe. Then England, some great games. So walk us through some of the memorable moments that you experienced in the lead up to the final between India and Pakistan.
Well, obviously the two most memorable matches were the first and the last, and both involved Pakistan and India. Where India is concerned, to win the first. Actually, what kind of captured the attention of the entire public in India, and I'm sure even in Pakistan, in fact, perhaps all over the world, was the first match itself, which India won in that bowl out over. I mean, it was madness. Nobody had ever imagined that a match could be decided in such a manner, and which with the the Pakistani bowlers, amongst all of them, making a complete hash of it. You would have thought that Pakistan's strength was bowling, they might do better, but it didn't happen. And that kind of revved things up, it just made the whole tournament come alive. And everybody, I remember that people started watching it and asking questions about the tournament after the first match. Nobody had seen much of T20 cricket or even knew much about T20 cricket till then. But after that first match itself, the interest in the tournament kind of just grew by leaps and bounds. And then, of course, India's performance was so exciting. And the final, again, and it was a humbling cliffhanger. So, when you look back, 13 years ago, but for those two classic matches, I don't know whether the interest in T20 it would have caught on, but it would have caught on so speedily is the issue.
Absolutely.
Honestly,
and of course, one of the other.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but just to add to what Ayaz said, the most exciting match for me was India-England and UV 6-6s. You remember that in Durban? Oh my God. That entire drama between him and Stuart Broad. And we were watching from the PCR in Cape Town because we weren't watching on any big screen. We were just watching over there. Everybody was just like, holding on to each other. It was just such a gripping. And that's what made you realize what makes T20 really tick is how close these matches come and how much of slam bam there is. You don't have to rook ke play. You can just go for it. And that's why people like whether it was Chris Gayle, whether it's Yuvraj and, their potential as these absolute hard hitters. Dhoni also. It was, absolutely unleashed pretty much. So yeah, that was my moment, the 6-6s.
It's so funny. Anytime someone says Yuvraj is 6-6s, as soon as I hear those two words, I'm conditioned to hear Ravi Shastri's voice in my ear. I can just hear when Cape Town goes, bale, 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 bale. I can just hear it.
Durban, yeah.
Yeah, I can hear Jeffrey Boycott's voice. 200, they were thinking 200. We're way past 200 now.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of the final, right? India's innings off to a decent start, solid start, but of course we couldn't quite capitalize towards the fag end of the innings. We ended up with 150 odd. Ayaz, playing at the bull ring, typically a very good batting wicket, right? Did you feel we had enough on the board at the end of the first innings?
I think Ayaz has gone off.
Ayaz
I
may have
think
dropped.
he's gone.
But
Yeah.
Mandira, Bharat, walk
There
us
was a
through
lot of
India's
trepidation.
first innings. Did you think we had enough on the
There
board?
there was a lot of. They're talking about the final match, right?
The
there
final.
was a lot of trepidation, in fact, and there was a lot of again, because it goes down to the wire. There was a lot of speculation on whether whether we'd put enough runs on the board, and the general consensus in the commentary box was that we hadn't, and then when we were bowling and when Pakistan was batting right in the end, and I still remember one of the most at that time Dhoni, right? He was just a newly anointed captain and in his glory and all of that, and he was taking those very unconventional decisions or very unconventional moves that he was making, which was kind of intriguing, especially to the old guard. And one of those was, of course, using Joginder Sharma in the last over. I mean, we can go over this match ball for ball, and I'll probably remember something or the other, despite the champagne. But yes, that the score that India put in the first innings was not considered to be enough. Just to answer your question.
Yeah, I would personally like to speak about that, because I remember as a 15-year-old kid who was watching this World Cup, and when the semi-finals happened, I wasn't expecting us to beat Australia. That was a really close match.
Right.
Sreesanth taking Hayden's wicket when Hayden was 62, 63, something like that. The match was in the balance. In the final, when we got in, I was having PTSD from the 03 World Cup. In my lifetime at that time, India had never really won anything major, like a global tournament. And I see the lineup changed. Instead of Gambhir and Sehwag opening, this Gambhir and Yusuf Pathan. मैं पहले से डर गया. मैंने कहा कुछ ना कुछ होने वाला. मैंने कहा गए, आज गए. And then Yusuf Pathan gets out. मैं कहा गए. फिर Uthappa comes, he gets out. मैंने कहा गए. Final में पाकिस्तान से हारेंगे, बेइज्जती करवाएंगे. आज भी record टूटेगा. And I could not believe the innings I saw. A new format, no one's played it before. Gautam Gambhir held his end and scored runs briskly. His 75 or 50 some balls was like half the innings total, right? And we thought it still wasn't enough, but he got us there. He gave us a formidable total, and I think that was such a turning point in Indian cricket in general, because if Dhoni loses that match as a final, captain final, who knows where we go from there? We go to the number one test team under Dhoni. We win a World Cup under Dhoni in 2011, the One-Day World Cup. That really rejuvenated things. And again, Gambhir pulled off the same thing in the 2011 One-Day World Cup final, where Sehwag and Sachin went quick and he made a 94, 96, something like that. But I think Gautam Gambhir is, when someone says that match, the World Cup final to me, the 07 T20 World Cup final, I know people think of Misbah's scoop right away, the one that Sreesanth catches. But for me, I just can see Gautam Gambhir's eyes and his flicks, to the offside, because that's what we needed. The Rohit Sharma 30 of the last 12 balls, saved us, got us to 150. But if Gambhir goes down in that match, and that's the only way I think of that match.
So true. And also none of the big boys. Tendulkar wasn't there, Dada wasn't there, Dravid wasn't there, right? So it was all Dhoni's band of boys, so to speak.
Yeah. And they were chopping the line.
You never mentioned Joginder Sharma.
Of course.
See, Joginder Sharma, I don't
imagine last over.
There was so much of stress and tension that time, because I remember the first ball I think went for a boundary.
No, it was a 6. I think the first ball was a wide, second ball was a 6.
6, yeah. So everybody was like, why Joginder Sharma? Why Joginder Sharma?
No, I remember we started 13 from 6. And, I was sitting with my dad. And my dad is like, ye kaun hai? I'm like, Dad, jo bhi hai, hamara hai. He's gonna bowl.
And
the thing was, I was like, Dhoni's done this smartly, because Pakistan was either at the chase or ahead of the chase. So he had to save his worst bowler till the last, because he had to go for it aggressively. If he had played Joginder Sharma in the 18th or 17th or 19th over, he might have scored 25, 30 runs. And next thing you don't have a last over. So, he took the risk, he played a gamble, and it paid off.
Absolutely. In fact, do you remember that joke, the knock-knock joke after the 2020 World Cup? Knock-knock. Who's there? Okay, come on, I'll play with you. Knock-knock.
Who's there?
Misbah.
Misbah who?
Misbah 6 runs.
What?
I get the joke. I got back to the studio just in time. Mandira,
just-
you spoke about trepidation, right? Of course, in the middle part of Pakistan's innings, right? India were probably in the driver's seat. Pakistan needed 54 of 24 balls with 3 wickets in hand. So you would probably say India favorites, if not firm favorites, but definitely favorites. Then Misbah ends up hitting 3 sixes of 1 over, right, of Harbhajan Singh. And Sohail Tanveer chips in with a very useful cameo as well, scoring 12 of 4 balls, right? That's when the balance sort of shifts in
Absolutely.
Pakistan's favor,
Yes.
right? At that stage, I'm guessing the trepidation that you spoke about, Mandira, must have been at its peak, at its pinnacle.
Let me say, every Indian fan was furiously and fervently in prayer and gulping down whatever liquid they could get. No, jokes apart, of course, in any case, from the beginning, right after the Indian innings, there was always, a sense and a feeling, like I was saying in the com box, to say that this is just short of what we would have been secure with. It's not enough, And when Pakistan started firing, that's when we were like, oh my God, yet another one that's going to go down to the wire. Because at that point, what you really want is like an easy, clean victory, genuinely, and you not have to wait to the last ball. But that's what happened eventually. So yes, but something. It was just such an amazing moment in history and such an amazing day. The first ever 2020 World Cup, the final match, India-Pakistan, being in the final of that match it was a fairy tale end for cricket, as it is anyway, And the more gracious fan would have said, may the better team win. But of course, we were so many desis who were crazily rooting for India, and as were the Pakistanis. But it was, the entire match was like this, Anubhav. Now we're okay, now we're not, Oh, are we safe? Oh my God, there's another.
Yeah, your typical T20 game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a typical, like the epitome of a sensational T20 game, which just keeps you on the edge of your seat and just jumping up like, no, or your heart's in your hands, in your mouth, literally, and you, and it was
But
just.
I must say that this even Misbah Haq, what a terrific knock he played. I mean,
Fantastic.
He took the team home, and that was the tournament where he actually announced himself largely through this innings to the rest of the world.
Very much so. Yes.
He went on to play for a long time after that, but he was he was pushing 30 already at that point in time.
Yeah.
So he had and what this victory did is that there are major inflection points in the history of cricket, not just Indian cricket. So obviously winning the '83 World Cup was a major inflection point. I think that was the migration of the home of cricket moved to India. It's no longer India.
And stayed there.
And then, so India became the mecca of cricket. And after 2007, we became the El Dorado of cricket, Suddenly, because, economically also India was doing well. And this whole, social media had just kind of come about. Everything gravitated towards this game. The biggest spin-off from the 2007 World Cup win was obviously the Indian Premier League.
Right.
The IPL,
Of course, yes.
Before that was the ICL, but then IPL came and that just kind of overwhelmed everything. And since in the 13 years since, it's become the most coveted property in the sport. So it's just so huge. It's the 5th or 6th largest sport property. And the genesis is actually in the 2007 World Championship win.
Yeah, I think India's final winning has a lot of role to play in the growth of T20 cricket, because T20 cricket was around before that. They were playing county in England, but no one was taking it seriously. But India wins the World Cup, and all of a sudden it has acceptance from 1.2 billion fans in India, right? Next thing you know, the BCCI wants to create a tournament to show this side of the game, because it's a short game, it's a fun game, people can watch it, people can don't have to focus so much time on it. India won the format, so that itself spearheaded the popularity of T20 in India. And then the IPL came around because of that, and next thing you know, T20 is probably the most watched format because of how easy it is to watch and how easy it is to follow.
Yeah, and also I remember, I think it was Ravi.
And Bharat, I think you may have answered.
Sorry. Just to add onto what Bharat said, also T20 made so much sense at that point in time because it was a match was for 3 hours. You know,
Correct.
as a family, it was a family outing, and you could either go see a film for 3 hours. In any
Yeah.
good old Bollywood film would be for 3 hours, including the interval, or you make a family outing out of it, a sport outing out of it, and take your kids and your wife, etc., and go and see a cricket match. So that
Yeah.
was, I think, a solid premise to say, let's give an entertaining option of cricket, out there, and let's see who bites. And of course, India.
And
Yep.
and the, and
I
the
think the
beauty.
whole the South
Sorry.
Africans actually kind of jazzed it up so well.
Yeah.
They made it so sexy.
It was
because
amazing.
it was just,
You know,
got
the-
everybody fancy.
All the cities, and I can only speak for Cape Town and Joburg because those are the two cities I went to. But everywhere, that vibe, oh my God. From the music, firstly, the African music in the air, you already feel like you're having a party.
Yeah.
You don't need anything else. Then the smell of that braai, that barbecue wafting
Yeah.
through. My God, my mouth waters till date. It's just like
We just woke up, Mandira.
atmosphere.
Please don't make me hungry. I'm trying to lose some weight. We just woke up. Oh God.
You're okay with the
Bharat.
barbecue. You're okay with the barbecue. Don't go to McDonald's.
you
So
sold
they-
me on the river there, huh? McDonald's in our interview. No, but see, you make a very valid point.
coming back to
So what I was going to say is that
coming back to cricket and how
thing.
delicious the tournament was. Bharat, go on.
Yeah, so another thing that makes T20 watchable, besides the 3-hour time frame, and besides the fact that we showed it in the evenings, people come back from work. You cannot watch a match in the day if you're at work, right?
Right.
Is that you can be a casual fan. You might not know anything about the game. You don't have to be nuanced to enjoy it. You can start watching in the 33rd over. You know
So-
how many runs are required, how many runs to go, who's batting. Okay, we're going to see wickets. We're going to see wham bam. It's not like a test match where you miss the best session when the match turned, and now you're seeing the effect of that. Right? Because
very
that's what a nuanced fan enjoys. It's not like a one day you missed the guy's 180 in the first 50 overs. Now you're just watching the repercussions of the other team just, dwindling. It's a match most teams are in, and you can just get in and just enjoy the spectacle. My mom enjoys it. My mom doesn't watch cricket. She watches it. Oh, she's like, oh, you know what? Chris Gayle is batting. She knows Chris Gayle is batting. She knows something's going to happen,
Yeah. So it's undiluted action. No, it's non-stop action. A dot ball is the unpardonable sin in
Yes.
cricket.
It's gold dust.
Or a wide in the closing overs. If you bowl a
Oh,
wide, I mean, you're probably asking to be sacked from the team. So there's just non-stop action, and it's a no-brainer. You don't have to learn the nuances, the fineries of technique, etc., etc. वो defensively इतना correct क्यों खेल रहा है?
Yeah, exactly.
That is, so it's very easy to understand across age groups, across genders, for anybody.
Yeah.
And of course, for India, and thanks to the IPL, it's also provided so much talent. Thanks to the IPL, so much raw talent that's come to the front because of the IPL and that kind of demand, etc. Right? And of course, there's so much that discussion can go on
What
forever.
happened is everybody wants to play IPL in India,
Yes.
and I'm sure globally, because it just kind of puts you in the spotlight immediately.
Yeah,
And if
completely.
you do well there, you pitchfork yourself.
You're
into
sorted.
the next team,
Yeah.
ODI
Yeah.
team,
Yeah, and the thing is, it brings all the foreign players because it pays so well. And then, I remember the first 3-4 years, Dale's came on a record. He's like, I loved it. My team finished last. We all partied every night, and I got paid so much money. There was no pressure to win. Like if we lost, it was like, good job, don't worry, one more drink today. So
I think the first year, maybe the first 2 years, was a bit like of a Jamburi, the IPL, not the World
Yeah.
2000. Jamburi for all the players, multinational cricket, so to speak, and then they had the parties every night.
The
etc.,
fashion
etc.
shows, yes, of course.
The razzmatazz around
So much
it
fun.
took a lot
Yeah.
of space and attention of the public, of the media. Things have started getting sorted out now because winning has become priority.
Yeah.
it connected Bollywood with cricket. Someone asked Virat Kohli, did he meet Anushka Sharma at a match? Did she come to a party or something?
I think Virat came a couple of years later, right?
Yes, much
Correct.
later, yeah.
Yes.
2010, if I'm 9.
I think
Yes.
2010 or 29, 2009.
9, I think.
2009, I
9
believe.
or 10, yeah. I remember.
We'll also take in a couple of questions that have come in from the audience. I think we briefly had a discussion that answered Vipul Sachdeva's question, and Vipul asking us, do you think IPL wouldn't have been possible if we had performed poorly in this World Cup? We, of course, had a discussion on that. Here's Akanksha Joshi, who's asking us an interesting question. Now, of course, let me preface this by saying that you can't really compare the significance of the 2007 World Cup winner to the significance of the 1983 World Cup win. But do you think there's some parallels nonetheless? She says, do you think we can compare the 83 squad and the 07 T20 squad in the sense that both in many ways were young squads, both not given any chance going into the World Cup, but they still proved all the doubters and the haters wrong?
Sorry, Ayaz. Go ahead.
Go for it. Okay, I think there are more differences than similarities. I think in an 83 squad, you had a squad full of test players, proven players, guys like Sunil Gavaskar, Kapil Dev, and they were playing a format that everyone knew, and you had the big boys like the West Indies and Australia and England. Whereas the T20 World Cup in 07, everyone was playing the format for the first time. No one really knew what to do with it. You had a lot of teams trying youngsters, a lot of matches coming close because, the strategies weren't built yet. But they were similar in the fact that both squads might not have been prepared as the other squads, but the fact that the format was new in 2007 and in 83 was already an established format, I think makes the biggest difference in this case.
Understood. Ayaz?
Yeah, so I think, look, in a sense, the similarity is that both were underdogs. In 83 we were underdogs, though we had our best team there, so to speak. I mean, the Indian players chosen for that tournament were the best. They were not considered good enough, and therefore they were underdogs is a different story. Because in 2 prior World Cups, India had fared dismally. The only victory was against East Africa in 1979. So we were the dull dogs of limited overs cricket in 83. In 2007, the difference was that your best players were not available or not chosen. So you had a bunch of very young players who were there, and I think perhaps that made a big difference because they carried no baggage.
Yeah.
They had no mindset. Old mindset, thinking things so traditionally or so conventionally that he didn't know what to do. For instance, Yogendra Sharma getting the last over to bowl would have been unthinkable.
Who would have thought?
It's very thinkable now today when T20 cricket has evolved and improvisation and clever tactics and unexpected things are actually the norm.
The norm. Yeah.
Yeah. But at that point in time, Lakir ke fakir ki tarah chalte the. And we would have probably been not better served. In hindsight, one can say it because India won. But I think that it helped that there were players without any serious baggage that they had come. And the other thing which happened, and this is something that, I think somebody made a mention of it. Because we had lost in the 2007 50 over World Cup so badly. These new guys who came in also sensed an opportunity for themselves to become stars. Because of the places they won with the seniors not being there. The seniors were all the guys who were in the 50 overs World Cup who had bombed.
Yes.
It's 19 hours.
So now they got this opportunity, and therefore, whether it's Gambhir was already part of that team in 2007 50 over World Cup. Whether Rohit Sharma, Srishant, Dhoni getting the captaincy. He was 3 months before that was unthinkable. Who would have thought of destroying Rahul Dravid, who had beaten England in England? Never mind the 50 World Cup.
No, it was definitely a far more level playing field in terms of all the teams coming together. There was so much which was tossed up in the air.
Greater, even for the opponents.
Yeah.
They didn't know what to expect from this Indian team because they were all perhaps worried about Tendulkar and Dravid and Lakshman.
And they probably prepared accordingly. You know what I mean? Their preparations are for the core team. And like you said, Ayaz, the 2007 performance did not help in terms of the 50 over World Cup. That was so disastrous. But 2007 2020 World Cup, like Ayaz, I'm just echoing what he said. Low expectations from the India team, a relatively new squad, kind of thrown in together under a new captain, in a new format, which had everybody kind of guessing. And so in that sense, I think 83 and 2007, while they can't compare because of the times, etc., but I think it's fairly evenly, matched. India in the 83 was, of course, the underdog, like I said, nowhere on the scene. But in 2007 also, no, they came in far from firm favorites or anything of the sort, And and all the antics that we saw, like you mentioned, all the youngsters loving their time in their sun in the sun. Srishant's antics on the field. I the dancing and that kind of run up. Haji's full bhangra over run up. We used to tease him, But it was.
And the Mandira, if you remember, the big movie that time which had released was Chak De India.
Of course, yeah.
And that was a song,
That was the
being played
anthem throughout. And imagine,
Right.
although 2007 things was fairly evolved and they were obviously the stars and the Indian team, etc., but still it was rustic enough, because I remember when the match got over and we all came back to the team hotel, and the Indian team was celebrating in, like, I can't even remember properly. It was like like a hall in the hotel, not even a proper banquet. I'd just say like a small makeshift little place. There was like that CD player. That was over there. There was some alcohol. And there was a CD player and some songs going on, and they were like, "Oh, yaar, aao, chalo, come on, everybody come, and let's have a bit of a break." It was so sweet. It was really very, very sweet. It was very sweet.
And there's one thing which all you guys will remember, obviously, is that it's not only Dada who can remove his shirt on the. Even MS Dhoni removed his shirt, if you remember, after India won, because he didn't kind of go around.
Yeah. I remember he gave it to a kid, but I think
to a kid. Yes.
Yeah, I remember he handed it to a kid, but I think the point here made is very well. The fact that this team was assembled, right, with people that hadn't played before under a new captain. I think the BCCI had thrown in the towel. They said, like, this is a Mickey Mouse tournament. No one really cares about this format.
And then
go
suddenly,
enjoy yourself. If we find one or two good players, we'll put them in the real team. Let's just learn something from this tournament. We don't really give too much of a crap about it. Enjoy yourselves and try to see if you can get something out of it. Probably honing Dhoni for the future. Dhoni winning that final, that team winning that final, was the biggest turning point for India that decade. Dhoni becomes the official captain.
The game, in the sport, in the history of the sport, this has been perhaps the biggest inflection point that I can think of.
Yeah,
not even ODIs. I mean, ODIs were a major thing, limited overs cricket, but this T20. I mean, look at the number of leagues that has sprouted up.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely. Like you said, India winning just took it to a different orbit altogether, and
the character of the audience has changed. You will find so many women, the kids. Otherwise it used to be like a male bastion. Watching cricket.
There's a very fair argument to be made that if cricket is to be globalized outside of 9-10 countries, it has to be done through T20 because it catches your attention span quickly. You can get engaged to it quickly, and then next thing you know, that people. The adrenaline is there, right? Like, you don't have to wait 30 overs for a wicket. You don't have to wait 50 overs for a six. You see it all together. You sit in 3 hours. All the rules come into play. And then next thing you know, you can build some affinity. Okay, I'll take a bat. I'll go out and play, Because where in the West can people give 8 hours to a game? Give 5 days to a game?
Anywhere in the world now, yeah. It's just like, it's just, even the 50-over World Cup, there were a few exciting matches, but initially, at least, it was feeling a bit long also. Like, the test matches, I don't know. I'm one of those that gravitates either towards a test match or towards a 2020. A one-day match doesn't have that much left in it for me anymore, personally.
See, the thing is, I agree with you on the point in terms of, like, you can get your one-day fix from a T20. But I think one days really satisfy me because I grew up watching one days, right? Because I didn't have time to watch tests as a kid, and T20s didn't come until I was like 15, 16, and they didn't become popular until I was like 19.
Stop reminding us of how old we are, please. Thank you.
No, but I think
I have a photo from the final, and this is after you see the people doing jhadu at the back. This is at the podium where the confetti. I don't know. Can you see?
Yeah.
Where there's confetti, and that's Michael Slater and me. We were both on chutti that day.
Yes.
That's very cute. That's very cute.
And that bat in my hand has been autographed by members of both teams, except there's one signature missing. And guess whose signature is missing?
Dhoni.
Joginder Sharma's signature. I bumped into him in a lift during the IPL, and I said, Joginder, your signature is missing on my bat. He said,
"Haan, in a very senior position, I think in Haryana Police."
Oh, very good, very handy. My bat is in Haryana.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's right.
Okay.
Yes, no, but the point I was trying to make, I think one days still show something that T20s don't, is that how to construct an innings, right? Because in T20, when you're 3 wickets down, 4 wickets down with 6 overs, you can still only consolidate for 3-4 hours, right? One days bring that balance. You can see some of the test nuance in a limited over. But I'll still stick with my original statement. If the game has to go global, it has to go through T20. T20 is the only cricket format where you can run into anyone on the streets in India. They'll have an opinion about a game, about a player.
Not just that, is the only way it can become an Olympic sport.
Yeah.
I mean, you have
What
to
about
have.
T10 also has started in Dubai, for the past 2-3
T10
years. Has
started.
anybody seen it?
Yeah.
It's-
So
Mandira, I have an idea. Don't take bowlers. Take
100 ball cricket
just
is
put a
one.
machine. Just put a machine there. Don't take bowlers. Just put a bowling machine, and we'll have a 6-off. Who has the most sixes wins. Yeah, T10 we've come to.
So there is a T10 in Dubai. It's been going on for the past 2 years.
We'll just there'll come a day when there'll be a genuine discussion. Should we have just super over matches, one over each side? That's it.
Maybe in your budhapa when we're all gone. Huh?
I'll bring the champagne.
Let's perhaps conclude with talking about the significance. We of course brought up quite a few points that did shed light on how significant this tournament was, for India. A couple of points that we mentioned, of course, this was a couple of months, as Bharat pointed out early on in the conversation, this was a couple of months after the debacle that took place when we played in the 50 over World Cup in 2007. We also spoke about how this was an all-round team performance. Ayaz mentioned that since there weren't quite players who were coming into the tournament with a lot of baggage, we saw performances from everyone: Yuvraj, Sehwag, Gambhir, RP Singh, Harbhajan, especially when bowling at the death, Irfan Pathan, Shrikant, especially against Australia, Rohit Sharma as well, who played a brilliant innings against South Africa, as well as that cameo that Bharat pointed out in the final when he scored 30 of 16. But overall, if you had to sum up the significance of this World Cup, especially pertaining to how significant this was for India.
I'd say it revolutionized cricket in India, because if India don't win the final, the audiences don't accept that as a format, and the IPL gets delayed by 3-4 years. I think it's inevitable, but I don't think it comes right away.
Yeah, I think 2020 was a format that was eventually going to be very, very successful. There was no two ways about it, because of everything that it married entertainment and sport so perfectly and brought out such a fantastic side to each of the cricketers. But by India winning it, it just catapulted it out of the orbit and kind of made that a much sooner progression than later. As far as India is concerned, it was really important for India to have won this tournament, because at the back of 2007, it was all very murky and very weird, that the 2007 World Cup tournament in the Caribbean. And after that, the image of cricket had also taken a beating, if you recall, with Bob Woolmer's death and all of that. And this was a very feel-good kind of a tournament for the subcontinent also. Generally, Pakistan did not win the final, but Pakistan was runners-up in the tournament and India was the winner. It was a very it was a great result for the subcontinent. It was great for cricket. It was great for T20 cricket. And it was a huge boost for our youngsters, for Dhoni as a captain. I think it cemented his confidence in the unconventional, and the experts and the older generation's confidence in Dhoni's judgment and sense of decision and judgment and decision making and his judgment calls, which were, initially an eyebrow or two might have been raised. Acha, because he was a bit unconventional and that captain cool and all of that, right? So it was I think a turning point in many ways, and it was fantastic.
So Anubhav, it was obviously a game changer in the literal sense of the word, and it just changed the way cricket is now perceived across the globe. It's just won more audiences. Cricket is now, just to give you an example, when the World T20 after we won, and as I mentioned earlier, then the IPL came, and I remember the first couple of seasons of the IPL. People would call me from newspapers from all over the world, just wanting to understand this phenomenon. What the hell is happening? Why is this, why is the whole country gone nuts? And look at where, the ultimate or the biggest beneficiary of that victory has been not just Indian cricket, but look at where IPL stands on a pedestal today. The debate in cricketing circles is not whether T20 is great or not. It's whether the IPL should be played this year. Forget about everything else. The unfortunate follow-up is that people are saying, forget about World T20 this year, let's play the IPL. So that's how things have kind of transited in India's favor.
Absolutely. That definitely sums it up. Early on in the conversation, at the very start, in fact, we spoke about how there was skepticism before the start of the tournament, and for good reason. But at the end of the tournament, as my very esteemed panelists pointed out, it proved that T20 cricket is most definitely here to stay. A big thank you, as always, to Mandira and Ayaz for having
Pleasure.
joined us. Bharat may have dropped, but if he's listening, then a big thank you to him as well. It was a splendid
He's gone
debut
for
on
a
a One Plus
barbecue.
Sports. I'm sorry, Ayaz?
He's going to have his steak and barbecue.
Perhaps. Absolutely. Perhaps it was someone ringing the doorbell at his house. But we look forward to many more collaborations with Bharat in the future as well. And of course, the biggest thank you to all of viewers who tuned in for this very special episode of Cricket Classics. And we look forward to many, many, many more such episodes in the future as well. So stay tuned on our One Play Sports networks and follow us across all the different social media platforms on which you might be viewing this. Thank you so much for having joined us. Have a good evening and take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you.